Greetings, everybody. I thought I'd take a few minutes and give you a Pianova update, just show you what we've been working on during the crazy pandemic, and it makes me really glad I have a shop and a couple of piano projects to work on to keep me busy. Since I won't be out and about tuning pianos for a little while, it's a chance to fix these instruments up, and I can take my time on them, and then once this whole thing blows over, we'll find a couple of good homes for them. But I wanted to share this Baldwin little miniature upright that I've been working on. This is it. This is a real popular style in the 1930s and 40s. They weren't made for too long. They're a transition piano between the big upright pianos and then the smaller spinets and consoles. They got really popular in the 50s and 60s. These big uprights tend to be 56 inches tall, or sometimes even bigger. That was sort of the standard size. These little uprights are typically 45 inches tall. And I thought I'd just give you a little primer as to what we've been doing to it. This is very typical of what we do to most of our pianos. You know, we start with taking the action out, cleaning everything out, and reshaping the hammers. This set of hammers is just beautiful. They reshaped really nice. They got lots of felt left on them. They seem hardly worn at all. This was a low mileage piano, I would say. And like another spot we look for seeing the wear on an action is how thick the leather is right here. On a lot of older pianos, if they've been used a lot, it basically wears down to the wood. Now, one thing we do replace on most of these pianos is the key bushings. That's the little felts inside the keys that stabilize the keys. It keeps the keys from wobbling and making noise when you're playing, and it just makes them feel firm and more like a new piano. Recently, we've been experimenting with using leather on the balance rail. This is the balance rail. It's basically the point where it pivots, and having a firm material like leather there, I'm thinking will really stabilize the keys over time. Because when this material here wears, the key will tend to start to lean a little bit towards one side and drop in their height a little bit. So I'm thinking the leather will really help keep the key level stable over time. I do like the feeling of nice German felt at the front rail, and it feels nice and smooth. Oh, here's another thing. We back-weighted the keys. Some of these pianos, the key return is just not as positive as we'd like. You know, and it really makes leveling the keys nicer if the keys return to their rest position more firmly. So it really makes the touch more responsive. There's many upright pianos, but especially smaller uprights, that can benefit from weighting the keys in the back. It still doesn't make the action feel heavy. It just makes it feel less sloppy. It makes it feel a little just more, it makes your finger feel a little more connected to the hammer. So then the whole regulating process, we spend quite a bit of time just leveling out the keyboard to make sure the keys are level. We make sure all the keys go down the proper amount. We make sure that the sharps are the right height above the natural keys. The sharp should always have a little bit of thickness sticking above the naturals, and not too much. You know, about a ½ an inch is the right height for the sharps. We really try to lock that in to a fraction of a millimeter to get that very consistent. And another part of the regulating is making sure the damper system is lifting nice and even. All the dampers, when you step on the pedal, should lift like little soldiers. And although I like to time the very bottom octave so that when you slowly release the pedal, the bass tone lingers a little bit. That is sometimes called the lingering bass. It's the kind of work most of the time you only see people do on high-end pianos. We try to treat a lot of our pianos like they are high-end pianos, even if they're just going to go to a student or an amateur. So anyways, we really try to make these play well. Another important thing we look at is the relationship between the key movement and the hammer to string distance, and to make sure that the timing is, and that the balance between those two things is right, because that's important for repetition. And the repetition, sometimes people say that you can't on an upright repeat as well because the key has to come all the way up. But if you regulate it well, and if you're aware of what you can do with the regulation and having the proper coming up with the proper specifications that work for that piano, you can really get the repetition to be very good. Another thing that's really important to me is getting the hammer let off very close. You know, I want to be able to play those really quiet tones and repeat them easily. So this piano will do that. I always like to make sure that the quiet pedal, which moves all the hammers up close to the strings, it has a limiter over here. I always like to cut some of that off. I like it to be a fairly dramatic effect if possible. Some quiet pedals, you step on them and it doesn't really seem to do a whole lot. But, you know, playing quiet is tricky on any piano, but maybe even more so on some upright pianos. So having that be responsive is important too. The next thing I was going to do, I have it opened up. I need to take it outside and blow it out again. We like to make sure that there's no dust that we're taking into somebody's home. And then I've done one tuning on it, but then I got the humidity control installed. What I like to do is tune it a little bit sharp, and then we put the system in and close the piano up for a few days. It will tend to drop the pitch a little bit, partly because it has a somewhat of a drying effect, and so I find if I tune the piano a little sharp and then plug the system, let it go for a week or so, then when I go over the tuning the next time, it'll be very stable. Other things just to mention real quick is when I have the action out of the piano, I tap in all the bridge pins, which are the little nails that stick into the bridge, and I have a little tool for basically making sure the little bends where it goes around the bridge pin are cleanly defined. It makes tuning the piano really nice. Gives it a really clean tone. It clears up some distortions that are typical in the treble of old pianos or even on new pianos. So I'm going to take this out, blow it out, and then the last thing is, once it's settles for a few days, is to do the final voicing, where I'll be meticulously making sure that the hammers are hitting all three strings simultaneously and going over the tuning again, and then we'll make a little demo video to show off its tone. So anyways, just thought if you were bored, you might like seeing my little Baldwin piano. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.